Good evening. My name is Joan Myers, and for my attending exercise, I will be reading from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 4, verses 14 through 30. And it reads, Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread throughout the whole countryside. He was teaching in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then he rolled up the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue was fastened on him. He began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. "Isn't this Joseph's son?" they asked. Jesus said to them, "Surely you will quote this proverb to me, 'Physician, heal yourself.' And you will tell me, 'Do here in your hometown what we have heard that you did in Capernaum.' Truly I tell you," he continued, "no prophet is accepted in his hometown. I assure you that there are many widows in Israel in Elijah's time, when the sky was shut for 3.5 years, and there was a severe famine throughout the land. Yet Elijah was not sent to any of them, but to a widow in Zarephath in the region of Sidon. And there were many in Israel with leprosy in the time of Elisha the prophet, yet not one of them was cleansed, only Naaman and Syrian." All the people in the synagogue were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of the town, and took him to the brow of a hill on which the town was built, in order to throw him over the cliff. But he walked right through the crowd and went on his way. As I read this passage, I tried as much to imagine the setting that was in Galilee as well as in Nazareth. And my sense of sight became active. What did I see? I see crowds of people with excitement in their eyes as they heard of the miracles that Jesus was doing, and they wanted to experience it for themselves. I see fans who just wanted to be identified with this man who was so popular because of who he was. I see the excitement in the eyes of everyone in the synagogue as Jesus opens the book to read. I see those who can identify with the proclamation of the words, read the proclamation of the words being read, and agreeing when their situation was addressed. The poor in spirit, the broken-hearted, the captives, the blind. I see the crowds gathering as he went back to Nazareth, his hometown. I see men with long beards, as this was their style of dressing, and ladies with long hair. I see the empowerment and confidence that Jesus had when he took up the scroll. I sense the shift even in the synagogue for those that believed that day. What did I hear? I hear silence as the scroll was being read. I hear talks of concerns when Jesus did not read the last part of Isaiah 61 verse 2. I hear positive responses as they were just in awe of him addressing the crowd about the Spirit of the Lord being upon him. As Jesus went back to Nazareth, his hometown, I hear questions as they wondered as to who this man is. Isn't he Joseph, the carpenter's son? And who is he to come back to preach to us about prophecies? I hear singing and chants as the Jews gathered for worship. I hear the sound of animals in the village. I hear the sound of confidence in Jesus' voice as he spoke about the Spirit of the Lord being upon him. What did I smell? I smell the wounds of those that have not been dressed for a long time. I smell incense being burnt in the synagogue. I smell dirty and unwashed feet. I smell dirty clothes and body odors as the villagers worked and lived in the same clothing. I smell the heat of the day. I smell wine as this was the drink that was really popular in Nazareth. What did I taste? I taste the anger and indignation some had, and the restlessness that others were experiencing, shifting foot to foot or foot to foot, not watching as Jesus took the scroll because it was just awkward for them to see the conflict that might have happened. I see the taste of bitterness in an angry crowd when they wanted to mob Jesus. What did I feel? I feel joy as the crowd were astonished that they understood his teaching and they marveled at him. I feel the tension of the crowd in Nazareth when they thought that Jesus, this ordinary boy who was not expected to be one to come back to preach about prophecies and doing miracles. I also feel that there was a sense of uncomfortableness when those who stood in the synagogue were just not in agreement with what Jesus was preaching in the end about the coming of the Messiah. I hope I would have enlightened you on this passage. Thank you so much for your time.